Hello and welcome. Another edition of the highly anticipated and often discussed The Process. Each and every week when Coach Jeremy Fouts and I get to spend some time together, really beginning to catch on with parents, and I am getting a lot of questions now with a little bit more context requests with regard to certain keywords that Jeremy and I talk about over and above strength training and size and meal prep. And today, we're going to delve deep into, with Coach Fouts, we're going to talk about a word that we hear, which is hydration. Now, a lot of parents and a lot of athletes are doing workouts and they're really aggressively trying to add both size and strength. But when I ask them about their recovery process, that there's a silence. And then also they ask me what role hydration plays. So thought, Jeremy, that I would start. This is our topic this week because we had so many people who are starting to get into late May, and obviously the summer is around the corner. And this is a topic I think a lot of parents find themselves thinking, oh, it's a bottle of water, a bottle of Gatorade. But hydration plays a critical role in all facets of life, not just playing a sport at the youth level. It's about school, it's about social interaction. But I know this is something that's very, very important to you with regard to your product lines, obviously, but more importantly, you're a dad. You have two athletes, and I know in Texas it's hot. So hydration is a big deal in the Fouts house. When you're working with parents, how do you get them to understand the role that hydration plays within the recovery process and the preparation process?
Yeah, Walter, well, I'm excited always to be on with you. We should have started the record button before we started here. We was having a great conversation about, you brought up a good point that you and I talk about often. Most youth baseball injuries are not training injuries. They are recovery injuries. They're not recovering. And, when you hear the word hydration, a lot of times people just think you're automatically going to try to sell them a supplement. And we're going to talk about the good supplements and the bad supplements here in a second, but also it's sleep, like you and I talked about. It's 100 ounces of water every day. It's getting the pasta in a couple days before the tournament, getting some watermelon, getting some cucumbers, all of these different things. And, we have seen it when I start, that first little league tournament, with my athletes in February here in Dallas, and I'm talking about before high school, because obviously your high school players are not going to be playing tournaments on the weekend. They're focused on high school ball, but the parents are so excited. And they do that first or two or three tournaments. And then mid spring, they're like, oh, my son's dealing with arm injuries. My son's dealing with this. And 9 times out of 10, it's because they're not recovering. And then you see it with your high school ball players, start the season strong. And then I have so many athletes start texting me in June or July. Should I pull my son out of the summer? His velo has went from 84 high school player to now it's 78. And most of the time, Walter, it's recovery. So we've all had those athletes that we watched that first game of that tournament, they're a stud. By game 4, they're a zombie. If he's a 13-year-old throwing 67, now he's down to 61 or 59. I mean, we've all watched this. And the thing that people don't understand, that lingering arm soreness is big. But the lack of velo and drop is big. But the silent killer in these young athletes that are not hydrated correctly and understand the recovery process is loss of confidence. You saw it. When a kid starts getting wore out because he's not recovering, he's not sleeping, he's not eating correctly, he's not getting the right electrolytes, they start losing their confidence. So, just a 2% dehydration makes a measurable difference in the reaction time. When we talk about hydration, a lot of people say, well, my son didn't cramp, so therefore he might have been fine. Well, the first thing that is affected when a dehydration process kicks in is it affects the nervous system. He's not able to react. He's not able to focus on the plays and understand the situation that's going on. 150-pound shortstop, Walter, if he loses 3 pounds in sweat in a doubleheader, that is 2%. He plays game 2 already broken down. He has no opportunity to play at his best. I don't care how strong mentally that athlete is. So, it's understanding the science behind it. You and I will get into this, but it's all about the recovery process and making sure that we're not having injuries just because we had a freak accident. Most of the time we're having injuries because we didn't recover process. We
You
didn't
know,
recover properly.
one of the things that I think we don't really hear enough of, and I know that you understand this, is the value of timing, meaning
Mhm.
the time of which we're preparing for these competitive environments. A lot of times, students and obviously families think, okay, well, here's a water to take to the game, but they don't realize that the hydration process probably should have started, earlier in the week. It's more of a daily, routine, but the timing for both recovery and hydration, it's a steady time elapsed kind of process during the week. It's not just specifically, okay, my athlete has games this weekend and we have a big tournament this weekend. Let's get a lot of water in us in the morning of our event. It doesn't work that way. So, talk a little bit about, the role that hydration plays throughout a typical day or a week, both from a academic perspective as far as being in class and cognitive functions, as well as athletic events throughout the course of the week and weekend.
Yeah, let's start by talking about, if you don't care, why do kids dehydrate faster than us adults, first and foremost? And then we'll get into that timing process because that's critical, Walter. You and I talk about that over and over. So your kids, and when I say kids, these kids don't like it when I call them a kid when they're 12 and 13 or 14. They're our young adults, okay? Our young athletes. Number one, they have a higher surface area to mass ratio. So they have more skin per pound. Okay. So that's one thing you've got to understand is these younger athletes, percentage wise, they have a higher surface area to mass ratio. Number two, they have an underdeveloped sweat response. So therefore they overheat faster, and then also they have smaller blood volume. So same blood loss hits them a lot harder. And then another thing is we got to remember they don't know what they don't know as young athletes. So they have a delayed thirst signal. You and I can be working here at the desk and we always have a water. We always have a CorVive hydrate. We always know the importance of sipping. But a young athlete, they are already 2% down before they ask. Your kid is not a small adult. You have to train them. Where's your water bottle? Where's your hydrate? All of those type things. And that is the what destroys that recovery and kills the gains. We'll get in here in a few minutes if you want to after the timing, talking about glycogen and arm care. A lot of your UCL problems is most of the time a recovery issue. But the timing process, when I talk about parents who say, okay, we got a tournament coming. We're starting Saturday. We're going to play 2 games. We'll play 1 game or 4 games on Sunday. We don't know. So if we're playing on Saturday, we are starting by increasing our carb percentage at night on dinners, depending on the size of the athlete, 5 to 10 to 15% more carbs, whether it be pasta, whether it be rice. I'm also a big fan of cucumbers. I'm a big fan of quinoa. I'm also a big fan of watermelon, all of those. And then starting drinking an electrolyte at night before we go to bed, a protein, CorVive protein plus collagen, which is a grass-fed whey with collagen. Collagen, we'll get into that here in a second, is big for the tendons, ligaments, and joints. Also, it's good for gut health. But then when you get closer to that game, if you have a Saturday game at let's say noon, your first one, we're not sleeping till 9:45 and going by McDonald's. Okay. We're starting off at 8 o'clock in the morning. We're getting 9 hours of sleep. We know what our athlete needs to go to bed to get that. We're getting up. We're eating a lot of pancakes, mainly carbs. We're eating a little bit of lean protein with that. We're not eating a lot of fats. It takes 5 to 6 hours for fats to digest. We do not want our body trying to digest food during our first game. So we're going to get a lot of good carbs in us. Then we're going to get ready for we always drink our electrolyte with our breakfast. It depends on the size of the athlete. I'm big on mixing the creatine with the electrolytes. The 6 grams of carbs is going to help the creatine get into your muscles quicker as well. And then we're going to if we have to be there at 11, then probably at around 10:30 or so, we're going to probably eat another, a half a bagel, depending on the size of the athlete, with some honey on it, or tortillas with some bananas and honey. We're going to stay away from the peanut butter because of the fats. And then in the dugout, this is another thing that's critical, Walter. When my oldest son, Pearson, when he was 10 and 11 year old, he would wear down quickly because he wasn't real big. So in the dugout, he would grab a couple of grapes. He'd grab a couple of pretzels in between those innings. And then immediately after those games, we are fueling their bodies back, whether that be a Chipotle bowl, whether that be, even a cheeseburger with a milkshake. But I'm wanting to recover them as quick as I can right after those ball games. So the timing is critical. You've got to look at this. I just got through building a plan for a hockey player that's flying into Michigan today. He knows from the minute he wakes up what he's eating for breakfast, what he's eating 2 hours later, what he's eating an hour before the game, what he's eating in between for the snacks, and then right after the recovery. So absolutely, timing is critical.
So a lot of parents, when they start thinking, Jeremy, especially as we get into the summer months and we start to hear a lot of college coaches talking about, the weight room and physicality and those types of topics that are really prevalent in today's youth athletic, all sports, not just baseball. I really would love for you to get parents to understand the value of proper, not only nutritional habits, supplementation, but in other words, how can you achieve great results unless you're providing your body, great nutrients? In other words, you can't get the growth or the size that a lot of parents now are associating with athletic success unless you're properly fueling the body. And that, the hydration piece, again, what I want to get across to parents is it doesn't start at like 18 or 16 in high school. It really starts, as you alluded to, your Pearson was 12 years old, but this is really for children that are running around soccer fields or lacrosse fields or baseball fields, even as young as 6, 5, 6 years old.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, number one, we got to understand what is electrolytes. I really didn't touch on that a whole lot. Number one, low sodium equals slow nerve firing, which basically means worse mechanics, which basically means wrong tissues take the extra load. So when we talk about an electrolytes and like the CorVive hydrate, the reason I love that so much, and I tell everyone, if you don't buy mine, that's okay. Here's what you're looking for. You're looking for number one, that has about 6 grams of organic sugar cane. The reason we used organic sugar cane, it's not a processed sugar. What is the reasoning we add organic sugar cane? Your body needs that amount of sugar to be able to bring the electrolytes into the cells. So if you and I went to a hospital and we got an IV, they don't add sugar to the electrolytes because it tastes better because it's going into our veins. There's a reason for that. Next, you need magnesium. Magnesium tells the nerves to fire the muscles. When the muscles are being fired, your muscles basically say, do I have that right sodium potassium ratio to create what they call in the science world a sodium potassium pump? What that means, if that ratio is right, then all of your muscles are engaged. So if all of your muscles are engaged, you're not having one muscle that's not engaged try to overcompensate, and then that's when you have a pulled muscle. Whether that be a little small muscle, you don't even know where it is on your oblique or wherever that is. So that is the most important thing. Then we're always going to put vitamin C for the help of the immune system. And we big believer in zinc and kosher salt. So it's all about having the right formula first and foremost. But getting into this training session in the summertime, my athletes, their routine is they're getting up, they're drinking their hydrate with their creatine, and then they're having their pre-lift. One of the things that's still fascinating to me, Walter, I deal with this over and over on social media. I did a post the other day about a pasta dish that I made for my boys for lunch. I bet I had 100 comments of moms thinking that they're helping me. They said, why didn't you go with the high protein pasta with the higher fiber? And I'm like, okay, so my sons, I'm focusing on getting them more carbs because I want to get their proteins from the chicken that's in that pasta. My biggest issues with my youth athletes, they do not get enough carbs. So we're going to give them a pre-lift with the majority carbs, very little protein. Why is that? We got to fill that glycogen tank. Our energy source comes from carbs. If my athlete goes into that lifting session and he has a full glycogen tank, he's going to push more weights. Because he pushed more weights, he's going to burn more energy. He's going to eat more calories throughout the rest of the day. Therefore, he's going to eat more food the next day because he's going to push more weights again the next day. 85% of it is nutrition. You could go lift 2 or 3 times a day, but if you're starting off on that lift, you don't have enough carbs, your body is going to pull protein out of the muscles and use it as an energy source instead of growing muscle tissue. That is called gluconeogenesis. So everything is, yes, 85% of it's nutrition, pre-lift with the right carbs, post-lift with the right carbs and protein, then a good lunch, then a good snack afterwards. Before your practice, another snack, good dinner, recovery shake at night before you go to bed. But if you will dial in your nutrition, I've got an athlete I'm working with in Tennessee, 8th grade lineman, 6', 230. I didn't put him on a large calorie surplus, but I put him on a 300 calorie, what I call recomp phase. He stayed the same weight after 30 days, but his lifts went through the roof because he had the right nutrition. So 100%, you want to put on gains this summer. You want to hit the gym. You want to train correctly. But if you do not train with taking good nutrition in, you will not get the results that you're looking to get.
When we come back from this quick message, I'm going to ask Jeremy the most common question that I get from parents of all ages when it comes to their athletes and the early signs of dehydration. We'll be right back.
Athletes' electrolytes matter, but you got to choose the right electrolytes. If you look at the sugars, 34 grams, the dyes, all the things that's not good for you in this product, this is a hype product. If you look here at the electrolytes made by CorVive, it's got the right amount of magnesium, sodium, potassium, zinc, kosher salt. It's got vitamin C to help with the immune system. I'm telling you, if you want to stay on the field, you want to perform at your best, you want to recover well, this is the product that you need to choose to fuel your body as an athlete.
Okay, Jeremy, now that we're really getting into the depth here of the topic with regard to hydration, a lot of parents will always say to me, what are some of the signs that I can look for, whether it's during the course of an athletic event or even after an athletic event, that may show or indicate that my student athlete is dehydrated? What are some things that parents can look for in their athlete that may say, okay, we need to make a beeline and get some, CorVive hydrate into them or some electrolytes? What are some signs that parents can be looking for?
Yeah, well, first I look at if it's a hot day, I try to monitor how much sweat my son is sweating. A few minutes ago, I mentioned that the reason that these kids overheat so quick is they have underdeveloped sweat response. So when I have an athlete that's not really sweating, and then I've got another one right beside him that's sweating quite a bit, I'm paying more attention to the one, believe it or not, that's not sweating the most, because basically his body, that sweating process is the cooling of the engine. So I'm looking at that. Number one, yes, both of them needs electrolytes. Yes, both of them needs water. Yes, but I'm looking at that. Number two, I'm looking at his response time. Remember, I said a few minutes ago, the dehydration process, the first thing it affects is the nervous system. So if his name's Johnny, I said, Johnny, how you feeling? And he does this little slow turn to the head, huh? and I see his face and his cheeks are a little bit red, I'm like, Johnny, we need to get you some carbs and some electrolytes immediately. Because you'll see that sluggish. You say, "Hey, Johnny, you're up to bat," and they kind of just get up real slow and they kind of move towards the fence to go grab their bat. You know what? That is the first sign to me to say, you know what? He's probably at that critical moment where he's lost 2% of his body weight, as far as he's getting in that pretty serious dehydration stage. But that's the biggest two signs I look at. Number one being their mental focus. Are they really on key? Are they really on point? Are they hopping out of the dugout to go get that at bat or get that bat in? Or are they just kind of sluggish? That's the biggest thing that I've noticed right from the word go.
Can you give parents like a blueprint of, let's just say the younger ages, let's say 8 through say 14 or 15? And they know, okay, we got a big soccer tournament or we got a big flag football tournament or something coming up. Give them an idea of, okay, these are some things that you can be doing early in the week. And then as you get closer to your games, and then obviously during the tournament weekend, what they can be packing in there, for their athletes during those tournaments that are ahead in the summertime.
Yeah. So Candace and I, we got kind of made fun of, Walter, when my boys played those tournaments, because we had basically a refrigerator on wheels everywhere we went. And it wasn't necessarily only for my kids. I knew a lot of other kids was not prepared. So we always shared. So if it is a out of the town hotel type situation, you always got to have what I call a hotel breakfast kit. So you got to, if the hotel does not offer it, we're looking at oats. We're looking at the CorVive protein and collagen that you can put in there for some overnight oats. We're looking at bananas. For after games, we always love peanut butter. We're going by the grocery store and preparing, getting some turkey sandwiches. We're not really usually buying the turkey sandwiches. We're buying the bread and we're buying the turkey. We're buying, the fresh lettuce and tomatoes. We're buying the watermelons. We're buying all of those things ahead of time. We're not swinging by Pizza Hut and eating before the game. If we want to do pizza after the game, then that's okay. But we have that planned attack of everything. Applesauce is extremely good. When in between games, we have a double header, we got a 13-year-old athlete. We're not going to run to the concession stand and get him a hot dog. We're going to give him some pretzels and applesauce that he can squeeze in his mouth, and it's real easy to get a hold of, and it's just digested in the system in 10 or 15 minutes. So we always have a grocery list planned for us. And that's I had a mom call me the other day and said, "You put 15 pounds on my son. You've been so grateful." But she said, "What you build for us on tournament weekends is something that's well worth the money, just because I know exactly this is the temperature it's going to be because you put it on the list. This is what we need to do the night before. This is what we need to do starting the morning, mid-morning snack, lunch, all of that different process." So yes, it takes some time. But what we're doing is we're teaching our athletes how to fuel to perform, is what I call that list. But not only that, Walter, we're teaching them about one of the most important things that we have next to our faith, and that is our health. So little Johnny might not make it to the pros. I don't know. I hope he does. And following your guidance, then hopefully he's going to play college ball. But the great thing is he is going to know as an adult how to take care of his health. He's going to know that, you know what, I might not be thirsty, but I'm about to step out on the 95-degree temperature and be on turf, and it's going to be 105 on turf. So I need to get 100 ounces of water, every day before that point. We need to drink an electrolyte the night before, make sure I eat all my food with some extra carbs, and then hit my electrolytes the next morning.
Parents, a lot of times when we discuss topics like this, I'll have parents that will, well, we don't have time. Our schedules are really busy. And here's what I try to always get across to parents is, first of all, we as parents are always seeking some kind of the inner sanctum, and we want to find that magic instructor or maybe that magic, training tool or things of that nature. And we're always trying to connect with the right team, the right coaches, the right instructors. The number one discussion that you have to have as a family, if athletics are a part of your family's, what I call day-to-day life, meaning you have youth athletes, multiple sports, ultimately becoming high school athletes, the critical foundational piece to all of that engine that makes it hum is proper nutrition and hydration. They go together. It is a recovery process. It is not just a one trick pony. There is not just 32 ounces of water or one serving of chicken. It is a huge process. And I want to let parents know, a few weeks ago, Coach Fouts and I talked with Tommy Moffitt from Texas A&M, and he went to great lengths to talk about the number of times an athlete hydrates during the day, where they're constantly on top of them to drink not only more water, but to get more electrolytes in. They're upping these are college athletes, they're upping their water intake by 8 to 10 cups of water a day. So I would strongly encourage, if you're a young parent and you're just getting involved and your student athlete is making that move up to the different age groups, Jeremy Fouts is going to help you as a family navigate the process of nutrition, recovery, and all of the steps that go throughout the course of 24 hours, including sleep. So, Jeremy, again, I want to let parents know, how are parents reaching out to you, working with you, as far as with regard to not only the meal prep process, but the hydration and the weekend fueling tournament schedule?
Yeah, they're welcome to reach out to me at jeremy@corvive.com or on Instagram at Jeremy Fouts Leadership. And Walter, this has been a phenomenal episode. I mentioned it, but one thing that you and I are big believers in is sleep. 70% of your HGH is released in deep sleep. So no less than 8 to 10 hours with our youth sleep is very, very critical. That's one thing that I have parents over and over when you talk about recovery and hydration. They're thinking about all these different things, and you got to get your sleep. If you want to recover properly, get sleep.
Well, I would encourage parents, if you have questions, obviously reach out to Coach Jeremy. Make sure you send them an email with your questions. I encourage people, when you have questions for me, I'm getting them through the email at walter@coachbeede.com or any of the social media platforms. I'll always take your questions. I do it almost on a regular basis. I forward them over to Jeremy, making sure that he gets them so you can get the answers that you seek. I want to say thank you again, Jeremy. This is a great episode. Parents, make sure you keep tuning in, commenting, and if you have any questions specifically, reach out to Jeremy, get those questions answered. Till next week, thank you very much for watching.
Thank you.
Athletes, electrolytes matter, but you got to choose the right electrolytes. If you look at the sugars, 34 grams, the dyes, all the things that's not good for you in this product, this is a hype product. If you look here at the electrolytes made by CorVive, it's got the right amount of magnesium, sodium, potassium, zinc, kosher salt. It's got vitamin C to help with the immune system. I'm telling you, if you want to stay on the field, you want to perform at your best, you want to recover well, this is the product that you need to choose.